we'll do that. And then I'm going to hit share screen. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about, like I said, this is probably going to be very quickly, you know, and then, you know, we can get into kind of more nuts and bolts and stuff. But so I just wanted to point out the ideas around critical pedagogy. And there's a lot of, I mean, of course, Paulo Freire was pretty much sort of the grandfather, if you will, of critical pedagogy. But there's also you know, this idea of critical inquiry that is really parallel to critical pedagogy, because so critical pedagogy is really the method of what research would define as critical inquiry. So, for example, like looking deeply at and examining, you know, issues that are, you know, pertinent in your community or classroom or life or whatever that can be, you know, whatever context we're talking about. And critical pedagogy is really looking at, you know, kind of how does this manifest itself with self and others and learners. So you really need both. And I kind of wanted to just sort of point that out a little bit. Can you just give me 1 second? The dog is stuck in the game.
I know, yeah.
I'm sorry, hold on. Sorry about that. Damn. You can't be stuck in the gate. Sorry about that. I'm back. It's like she's a puppy, so we're just kind of still getting everything used to that. So I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, there's this difference, but they sort of function hand in hand. And then, of course, to be thinking about not just the journals and discussions, but the whole idea of the plan, and then the really what we would call your capstone project. You know, this is the culminating work, if you will, in the certificate. So what is that project that you're going to design, implement? What is that going to look like? So I wanted to kind of at least touch the surface of that a little bit, because May is going to be here sooner than we think, right? Like tomorrow's March 1st. But so I just kind of want to, so then we can spend, you know, March and April really refining that. So all of you, you know, feel really good about what you created, that there's time for implementation, that there's time for, you know, analysis and synthesis of the implementation. You know, so I really wanted to just kind of, you know, lay that out, and then talk a little bit about, now this is the first time I'm teaching the course. And so I'm curious about the plan. For me, I didn't feel like it was concrete enough, but I talked to Jennifer Nemi, who does the IDI for us. She's a trained consultant for us, but has also taught this course. On multiple occasions.
Sure.
And, you know, for her, because she lives in that IDI world, she administers them, it was just very easy kind of back and forth, you know, with students when she was teaching it. And for me, with my teaching hat on, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I feel like we need more concrete steps. But then when I go to the plan itself, the sample plan that's in the, you know, then it kind of makes sense. So I wanted to make sure people just had a good understanding of that, for lack of better, you know, terminology, I guess. So that's kind of what this next slide, and you're going to see me kind of look at my notes. So you've basically done the first 3 steps of the plan, and now you're really on step 4, and this is laid out in that sample that's in the resources tab. Yeah. And I'm looking at it only because it's not page numbered, for one thing, but the step 4 is where you're really identifying the stress points in both your developmental and your trailing or leading orientations, not trailing, I'm sorry. So your developmental and leading orientations. So that's kind of part of, and then the last step, step 5, is really the development of the plan that is going to help you get to achieve your goals that you've already developed. Does that make sense? And does that kind of feel like what you've been working towards?
Yeah, so far.
Okay. So in this previous lesson, I asked you to come up with, a timeline kind of for implementation. I was using my sort of, specific objective teacher hat in terms of, okay, what's actionable, in terms of a time frame. And so I really want to make sure, because I've looked at different projects in the past, I've looked at the course previously and wanted to just get a sense of, others, from previous students' work and projects and stuff, and everyone has done a phenomenal job. But I want to make sure that we're really specific about actionable items. So how does this, so I'm just going to use an example. I don't think anybody has this as a goal, but I'm going to work to identify, cultural bias I have as related to English language learners. Okay, let's just say that's one of my goals. So how am I going to work towards that? So, writing about it is one thing, but how is that going to increase my awareness, right? So I want to make sure that we're really, really pinpoint specific about identifying, which is setting your goals, and making sure they're, manageable, which is why you're asked to do short and long term, but also that they're actionable, that are going to have some impact on either your practice, your community work, your own professional growth, so that they're measurable at some point. And we only get us, touch the surface of that, but I want to make sure people are really thinking about, how do I make this impactful, either in my own sphere of influence or in the context of my classroom setting, or however, my workplace setting. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that, for me, that was kind of I wanted to make sure that we all really understood that, because it's easy to set goals that feel attainable, but the more challenging part is the implementation, you know what I mean? And then the assessment of the implementation. So I want to make sure that everyone's clear on the expectations of that, because I'm not sure the sample plan is that it's that specific, but it kind of goes about it in a different way. So I just wanted to offer another kind of way of thinking about it, so that people are clear about, what needs to happen. Do you have questions, or does that make sense?
No questions so far. That makes sense.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the what I call the professional development plan, but really is your train the trainer, right? This is your capstone, because in my mind, this is really a professional development creation that all of you are, partaking in. And so I, going through the syllabus and looking at, okay, what's kind of laid out there, but, I think we really need to start zeroing in now on thinking about what do I want to do for my Train the Trainer project. And I probably should have used that title here instead of professional development plan, but I just want to make sure people know that I use the terminology interchangeable. Sorry if that's confusing, but you want to make sure you have a sound topic. What is it you're going to do? I've had students in the past that I've looked at, and I reached out to Jennifer as well, but who've done different trainings for their district, for their building on cultural fluency and that type of thing. People have done book groups. There's all kinds of different, actionable items that you can do, but I want to make sure that, you kind of understand the kind of 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, and why, so that when we get to the end of the semester, everyone's clear that they've developed a project, they've implemented it, they've had time to assess the implementation and do some synthesis on it, because at the end of the term, you'll be, presenting what you did to the rest of us. And I'll be using VoiceThread for that.
Sure.
So, you don't have to take us through your entire project, but, a nice 5-minute kind of summation of what you did using VoiceThread, in addition to a 2-page written reflection of it. So one of the things I like to use when asking about different, readings or topics, but I like to use the word essence. So in your write-up and even in your presentation, you want to be thinking about and really sharing what is the essence of your plan, your project. What is it that you developed that, what was kind of the thrust of it, if you will. Who is your audience? So it's important to have that identified. And then for your implementation, it's really important to develop a real simple lesson plan template. And a good lesson plan really answers kind of those above mentioned things, right? Mm-hmm. So, really that plan is going to, encompass these things. The assessment piece is how are you going to know, your train the trainer project is going to have some goals attached to it, right? So how are you going to know your goals are met? So that's kind of what we mean by assessment. So, that could be in, varying degrees. You could create a survey, you could ask for feedback. There's all different kinds of ways. Mm-hmm. And so really the purpose of this capstone project is to give you some sort of general guidelines or guardrails, if you will, but not create it so tight so that you don't feel the flexibility, you know what I mean, to do what you want to do. So this may feel kind of loose, and it is by design, but it also, hopefully is enough to give you some parameters to work within. And then of course the written analysis and summary, and that's a 2-page kind of overview of what you did, how it went, what would you do different, that type of thing. I'll give you an outline. I'll have that in Blackboard so you have some kind of an outline to follow for that. But I just want to make sure that people have enough time for creation implementation, because March 1 is tomorrow. So you have all of March, all of April, and then May 10th, I believe, is when I was looking at the calendar, is the due date that I'll have everybody submit, because I think that's finals week. Well, commencement is May 12th. I'm looking at my calendar right now. But anyway, I'll post the due date. The point is it's going to be due, sometime in early May. So I want to make sure people have ample enough time to implement whatever it is, the project that you're designing and implementing. And then, of course, with VoiceThread, sharing with the class. And it'd be fun if we had just, if the 4 of us could just get together like this in Zoom, and you could take an opportunity, because then it would be live. We could ask questions, and Zoom is a really easy tool. I can just give everybody presenter rights, and they can share their project.
Yeah, that would be great.
So do you have questions just in terms of this sort of kind of this guardrails, if you will, or kind of general outline? Do you have questions about any of it or specific pieces of it, or?
This definitely helps.
Okay.
I think giving specifics would kind of negate a lot of the things we've been talking about, especially in this class.
Right.
I think it adds another challenge, especially when I feel like we're so used to just getting very strict guidelines on big projects like these.
Right.
So I know, at least for me, it'll take some time to kind of really think through exactly what I want to do, mm-hmm. And what's going to be the most beneficial. I'm envisioning doing this with, my colleagues here at school.
Okay.
So it'll take some processing, but
right.
This definitely helps kind of hearing you talk about each piece a little bit and why it's laid out this way. So.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard to kind of okay, just go out and develop a project, but with enough sort of, looseness that you're able to really create. I mean, the idea is for everyone to create something that's authentic, that's meaningful and applicable to their setting, their work, or professional growth. And I want to make sure, it could be something that you're doing in your own professional growth and community that is not connected directly to your classroom or school building or, work setting. So I want to make sure people know that that's an option as well.
Sure.
So I'm glad that this is helpful. It does feel a little bit loose, but I think that's, I just want to make sure people know that's the intent, that, we're not giving you 10 steps and and pigeonholing you in. That's part of critical inquiry. Critical pedagogy is really thinking, deeply about kind of your own application of these ideas. So,
right.
So yeah, it would be a little bit of a hypocritical thing if we.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So So that's all I had in terms of slides specifically. I mean, I think my last slide is the Q&A kind of session. I can leave this kind of up a little bit more, but yeah, I just wanted to I was hoping all of us could be here, but I understand that, things come up, and I will schedule the timing of these, at different times, maybe a little bit later as well. But I really just wanted to make sure that we were kind of collectively thinking about, okay, what's coming ahead? The journals, discussions, I'm not worried about any of those. The IDI plan, I feel like everybody has, really kind of gotten a good handle on that. Everybody's had their follow-up meeting. What I want to make sure is the capstone project feels, not just manageable, but also that it's done in a way that, again, is very authentic to each one of you independently. So.
Yeah, that makes sense, and kind of seeing this plan all laid out really helps. I like to think through things, knowing what my end goal should be, as well as the little steps in between. That helps a lot. I guess I would be interested in, and again, this is just me trying to narrow things down, and I think itching for more information, even though the whole plan is to have it be open, what others have done in the past. One thing, and this kind of just came to me, one of my colleagues just came in to drop off my iPad. She had to use it today. I'm her instructional coach here at school.
Oh, cool.
So I would be interested in kind of seeing if I could come up with a way to integrate what I do for coaching with my other colleagues, and how, if I could mesh these two together.
Okay.
Or I like the idea of the book study too. I have been raving, I have it right here, about the Zenkov book, the Cultivating Social Justice Teachers. I've been raving about it with some of my other colleagues, so I keep putting it in their mailboxes saying, you should read this part.
That's great.
Really, I need it back, but yeah. I know you'd like it. So that would be really, I think, beneficial too. So right now I feel like I'm just kind of trying to figure out what topics are manageable and meaningful. And right. I don't want to say necessarily allowed, because I know that's the whole point of this. It's just really challenging.
Yeah. No, and I understand that. And, one thing with I'll just use the book group as an example. I mean, starting small is okay. I mean, maybe it's you're reading 2 or 3 chapters, maybe 2 or 3 of your favorite chapters out of that book or something, or I've done this in the past where I've shared articles, different articles on cultural fluency and culturally responsive pedagogy. And we've just read a different article, each week or each month or whatever, and then came together. But I certainly can I have to ask students for their permission, but I'll go back in and look at some of the final capstones that have been turned in historically. And I know actually I was at the NAME conference in November, the National Association of Multicultural Ed. I was at their national conference in Salt Lake City.
Oh, wow.
And in one of the sessions I was sitting in was a graduate of our certificate. And he's,
oh, wow.
yeah, it was unbelievable. I'm like, oh my gosh, we were actually in a small group together. And he,
oh my goodness.
yeah, he recognized my name. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we started talking, and so he would be he's a teacher here in Minnesota, southern part of the state. And he would be somebody I could, maybe reach out to and ask if he'd be willing to, have his project shared. And there's others as well, but I think, I'm going to make a note of that and see if I can work with Jennifer, who's taught the course in the past, and see if we can track down students and see if they're willing to allow us to share, or even just topics and kind of parts of it.
Yeah, that would be really interesting just to see where others have taken it and how we can kind of develop it and make it our own. So I think that'd be interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I made a note of that, and I'll definitely do that, and I can share that in the Blackboard.
Yeah. But I think that's the biggest piece right now. Like, I was excited to hear that we would be talking about this. I didn't really know what to expect from it, I guess. So
yeah,
I'm excited to start kind of diving in. So
cool. Well, that's good. And I don't know enough about, if you want to talk more at some point too about your instructional coaching and kind of what you're doing with that, and how you might see some of these, tenets of critical pedagogy, or, the other thing too is, you can take the culmination of skills you've learned throughout the course of the certificate, so you can pull pieces from the courses to kind of help inform your project as well.
Sure.
So, do you have other questions, or?
Not yet. Not yet.
Anything come up that?
Nope, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm sure more will come as I do some more work and process more of it, but as of right now, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, and I just want to encourage everybody to make sure, reach out to me, ask questions, send an email. I'm happy to do, we can do FaceTime, we can just have a phone conversation, whatever is necessary. We can meet through Zoom. It's easy for me to send a link out and meet in Zoom and so forth. So yeah, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And I want to just make sure that this is on, because we haven't talked a lot about it in the class, and I just wanted to make sure that it's on people's radars. And
absolutely.
Because I know we're all busy and teachers are busy, and so I know that you're juggling a lot. So all right, well, I don't have really anything else that I have any burning issues that need to be covered. So I just want to appreciate for you joining and your time, and hopefully this is helpful, and please reach out if there are questions.
I will. Thank you so much.
Yep, thanks. Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.